That one did enter the chat up there.
Do we want to get into the roster, guys?
It's rattling around. Yeah, okay, all right.
Team USA announcing their World Cup roster yesterday. Let's break it down a little bit because we were talking about this morning, and you two were going chapter and verse on the way that this all shakes out and who Mauricio Pochettino, their head coach, chose for this 26-man roster as they get ready to play their first game on June 12th against Paraguay. And the biggest takeaway I think that you guys had, at least from the jump, was, and I think this is where a lot of people went, that's a lot of defenders.
A lot.
But don't ask Mauricio to define a defender.
Because they'll sit there and lecture you about what a wing back is versus what a center back is to people that cover the game, which obviously, they know.
I was about to say, you've lost Mike and I, but go ahead.
Exactly. The coach is losing people too, so... But yeah, that is a lot of defenders, and notably, there's not that many midfielders. The depth in the midfield, those four midfielders. I mean, you kind of spread out the attacking midfielders. There's a couple players in there that are on paper, quote unquote, midfielders, but they're attacking players. But the four defensive midfielders there is, if Tyler Adams or Weston McKennie get hurt, they're in a lot of trouble. Or if they get like suspended for yellow card accumulation for a game. That's where the United States team is in. They're in a lot of hurt.
The 1,000-foot view on the roster, and I think people's overall reaction to it was, for the most part, the expected names are on there. There were a couple questionable guys who made it. There were, I would say, at least two questionable names that didn't make the roster. But I think, again, if you look at that, even just from like the number of names listed there under defenders and then midfield/wingers, is that this roster that he's fielded, he is banking on this being a very good defensive team, because you don't see, I mean, the forwards are very talented, and especially the guys who made the roster, like their form as of late have been excellent. But I mean, at the end of the day, like you just said, if any of those defensive midfielders get hurt, and you're also banking on a guy in Chris Richards to kind of anchor your back line, that just leaves a lot of susceptibility to holes in your defense when not only are you relying on a first-time goalkeeper in Matt Freese, who's likely going to be the starter, but a bunch of guys who haven't played that many games together.
So a lot of names on the roster right there, but who can we expect PLG to actually play?
So we'll pull up this, what's that, VO27, the starting 11 that me and Michelle kind of projected here. There you go. So like Michelle said, Matt Freese is likely going to be the starting goalkeeper. Matt Turner, the backup, was the starting goalkeeper in the last World Cup, but Matt Freese has been starting over Matt Turner for the last 2 years. Center backs, Chris Richards, like you said, he's nursing an ankle injury. Tim Ream, a lot older, but like an elder statesman on the team. Pochettino loves Alex Freeman, and then these wing backs, because they're going to do 3 center backs starting and then 2 wing backs, which are basically defenders that can go up the field and attack. And that's Serginho Dest and Anthony Jedi Robinson. And then we have the 2.
Jedi is not an official middle name, by the way. That is the nickname.
That is his like given nickname. They call him Jedi Robinson. I don't even know where
as far as nicknames go.
Pretty good.
Good one.
Pretty
Better
solid
than
one.
Sith, you know what I mean? Like, don't go the opposite way.
And then the crucial piece of this, which I think Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie are 2 of the biggest pillars of this team. But if you miss one of those 2 guys, the depth at that position is a big issue.
Weston McKennie, a Little Elm product.
He is a local guy, and so he was born in Tacoma but grew up here in North Texas. FC Dallas alum, plays for Juventus. And I would
been the best American player.
I would
in
argue Weston McKennie is our best. Him and McKennie is like 1A, 1B. And I mean, and Pulisic has been down in form, so I would argue going into this World Cup that Weston McKennie is probably our best player going in.
I will say a couple of those names on that roster, or at least our projected starting 11, FC Dallas Academy kids. Like they were, I mean, we've heard Dan Hunt preach this message that FC Dallas is one of the best academies in MLS. It's an objectively true statement, and a number of those guys, Chris Richard came up in that academy. Weston McKennie had spent some time there. Pepe did as well. Ricardo Pepe making the roster.
Zendejas was as well.
Left off of the 2022 roster. So, yeah, I think overall you painted a good picture. And, yeah, to your point about wingbacks and whatnot, there's a picture of Zendejas.
There's Zendejas.
What he's relying on are these guys to be able to help in defense but also create in the attack. And that's where he's been questioned on, like, are these players actually able to do that? And he went back and forth with some of the reporters in his press conference yesterday, defending his decisions on some of these guys who made it. I think one of the ones that was a big question was Tanner Tessman not making the roster. And
Yeah.
his explanation for that was, look, he's been dealing with injuries, but I think more than anything, he was saying, you know, I don't want to talk about the guys who didn't make the roster. It's disrespectful to the 26 that did. I think when it comes to his perspective on some things, like, that's a valid point. He was also in question about how he communicated to the guys who did and didn't make the roster.
That's the
also
part of
something
this that is
in question.
Yeah, because apparently he sent emails to everybody. So basically, the players who didn't make the 2026 Team USA World Cup roster found out the same way that I found out that I didn't get into Yale. Sorry, bro. Here's your email.
Did you
Not
apply?
happening.
Did you apply to Yale?
So here's
He didn't apply. Yale just emailed him and like, we don't want you.
No. So this is shout out to my father if he's watching today. This was my dad.
We know your son isn't.
I did. That's exactly right. My wife sent me a video during the commercial break with my 21-month-old son. Do you want to watch Dad, or do you want to watch Blippi? And he said Blippi. My father, I did decently well on my SATs, and decently well, like it wasn't like I did like a 1500, like on a 1600 scale it was like a 13.
That's how long ago it was.
40 or
They had it on
That's the
slightly
scale
different.
was different.
Well, it was
Slightly
on a
different.
2400 scale,
Right.
but that was when we had to like still tell everybody
Yes.
what the 1600 scale was. And my dad was like, "Whoa, hold on, we got to apply to all these Ivy. I applied to like 4 different Ivy League schools, and all 4 came back within like a day of each other. No. To return to the point, that's how they got an email. They got an email saying
We regret to inform
you didn't
that
make
you didn't make your
the
World Cup
Team
dreams
USA
are done.
roster.
Mauricio Pochettino has been basically
Pochettino?
I emphasize the O. He's been under question about so many of his decisions since he took over in 2024. What you're talking about, how he communicated to the players who didn't make the roster, was also in question. To his defense, he, as a former player for Argentina, one of the best teams in the world, like year over year, he said, I didn't want to talk to the coach after they were telling me I didn't make the team. And he's been in those shoes before.
That is interesting perspective.
And to his point, like, he felt like, no, then I'm making it about me. I feel bad, so I'm going to call them and talk to them so that I can make myself feel better when I'm giving them the worst news of their professional careers. I think to his point, like, there is some validity there. I can also see on the other end of things how it would feel a little inhumane or just
cold.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
distanced. But that is his argument here, is like, no, like, I didn't want to talk to the manager when he was telling me I didn't make the team. I was mad at him. And by the way, he had already had the discussions about me before he spoke to me, so I didn't want to talk to him. That was his defense. It's up to everyone else to have their opinion on it, but that was why he did it this way.
So
question for the room here.
Yeah.
Mauricio Pochettino, upon being hired as the head coach at Team USA, where does he rank compared to all of the previous hires as the leader of Team USA? In terms of career accomplishments, in terms of skins
He's
on
one
the
of the most
wall.
accomplished
yes,
like coaches
in
in U.S.
soccer.
history.
Yes.
Well, no, I think he's one of the best coaches, like,
In the world.
yes, generally speaking.
Yes.
And
So I only asked the question because I was pretty sure that was what the answer was going to be.
Whenever
I'm
he got
inclined
hired,
to
they were like,
believe,
that's
you
a
know what?
splash hire.
Yeah.
If this is what you, cause like, I do remember that being the talking point was, all right, hey, USA's hosting the World Cup. USA went out and got their dude to run this thing and make it actually sing.
And
Now,
that's
He's still a long way from making it sing, but I am inclined to say, you know what? If this is what this dude thinks is the right move from a personnel standpoint, as well as from a communication standpoint, if he's been able to get a lot out of guys in the past, I'm intrigued to at least see if he can get a lot out of guys in the current.
But that's kind of the primary question here, right? Like, that's where the controversy lies, I would imagine, PLG. When you see this roster, this is obviously one of the most pivotal moments for U.S. soccer imaginable.
Yeah.
Is this the roster you want?
I would say so, yes. Players, 23 through 26, you can debate, should Luna make it in? But for the most part, the crux of this team is the group that should be on the team.
I think where the questions come in is, right, I think since Pochettino took over, 91 players have been called into camp. And throughout some of these friendlies that you've seen the U.S. men's national team take part in over his tenure, there have been some bad losses, some embarrassing losses, some games in which you're questioning, what are they doing? Like from a tactical standpoint, from a
What are they doing?
from a formation standpoint, like
Shout out Taylor Twelman.
legitimately, like there have been so many players brought in, and we talked about this. Yes, there's like that core of maybe 10 to 15, about 13 players who are your U.S. men's national team, like who you think of when you think of the American men's soccer
The
team.
reason why they've been called the golden generation, quote unquote.
Right, yeah. Then there's like
Ooh,
this
that was a thick high
there's
Get
this,
out to that another time.
well, I mean, look at their
Mike's
performance
like,
on the
I've
national
experienced
stage
that a
in the
lot.
last. Anyways, then there's like this revolving door of guys that he's brought in. To his credit, he's trying to get a feel for who are the best players in this country that I can use at my disposal. But the results so far have been less than making it sing, to use your phrasing. And so I think that's where there's, yes, I do think who he selected, other than there being a couple question marks on the fringes, are who you'd expect to be on the roster and hopefully be on the field when the games start. But I think the results haven't necessarily built a lot of confidence in the American fans or the American pundits based on what we've seen over the last year and a half leading up to the World Cup. And whether that's because it's a different roster every time or because they're still fine-tuning how they want to play and how they get the most out of these American players, that's still up for discussion.
So that's my last other question here relative to all of this. Why now with the roster reveal? They have 2 friendlies left before they play their first game in the World Cup on June the 12th, 2.5 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. And pardon me, there may be a rule here, but why not lock in the roster a month ago?
That's the talking. Like, why would you not lock like
more than a month ago? Like
the last year? What have you been doing the last year and a half?
And that's where the questions are. It's like, why are we using this revolving door? Like, at a certain point, your national teams don't get that much time to practice and play together because they play for clubs 80% of their lives.
Right, like one of the guys that was introduced yesterday was overseas because he's got a big championship match tomorrow.
Chris Richards, arguably one of the most important players on the roster, is not there.
Not even here.
Yeah.
Also an FC Dallas Academy product.
There you
go.
But yeah, that's to your point.
That's a good.
Like
you're not the only one asking that question.
You need to build that chemistry, and like, why are you why is it now? This should have been done in the past.
He said he did not
15 months.
know who the final 26 were until Thursday. Like until they were basically communicating
announced
out
it.
to the players.
Like
Right.
if
That
Argentina,
sounds like indecisive.
I was gonna say if Argentina
Yes.
does that, they've got the talent. If we do it, it's like we're trying to figure something out.
Exactly. And so I mean, like with these 2 matches coming up against Senegal and Germany, that's going to be very telling on one, what type of system he's going to run, and 2, do we have the players to run the system against top tier talent?
Yeah.
And then going into this this calendar year, they've gone through a murderer's row of World Cup tune-up games. You got Belgium, Portugal, Senegal, and Germany, who are all 4 of them are top 15 teams, and it's shown. They've gotten blown out in every single game thus far. That's why, like, if they have a bad showing in these next 2 games, I find it hard to believe that American fans are going to be like all thrilled coming into the group stage. But if they have a good showing,
That's the thing. Lower expectations, over deliver.
there you go.
That's Pochettino's plan.
Maybe that was the strategy all along.